My wife called it personal growth. Here's what really happened. She was leaning against the kitchen counter like we were discussing vacation plans when she dropped the bomb. I'm giving you two choices, she said, arms crossed, chin slightly raised with that calm, polished expression she'd been practicing in the mirror. You can either accept that I want to explore something with him, or just stay out of the way while I do. I actually laughed, not because it was funny, but because the sheer audacity was so far removed from the woman I thought I'd married. Come again? I asked, playing dumb to see how far she'd take this rehearsed speech. She sighed like I was already being difficult. I don't want this to be a fight, okay? I'm being honest here. I'm trying to handle this maturely. Her hands gestured gently as she spoke, her voice soft like she was telling a bedtime story. People in our generation are rethinking what marriage means. Monogamy isn't always natural, you know that, right? I didn't answer, just leaned back in my chair and let her keep digging. I've been talking to people, reading, listening to podcasts, she continued. This isn't betrayal, it's expansion. That word again, expansion, polished smooth until it meant absolutely nothing. Then came the real kicker. Eric, this isn't just physical. Her voice got even gentler, like she was breaking bad news to a child. He and I connect intellectually, emotionally. He understands me in ways that. Well, it's not a criticism, but I've grown, and I don't want to shrink myself back down to fit who we used to be. She still hadn't said his name, but I knew exactly who she meant. Carter Mitchell, her 42-year-old boss, founder of some pretentious mindful tech startup with exposed brick walls and cold brew on tap. The kind of guy who wore Allbirds, drank mushroom coffee, and called everyone brother while shaking hands like he was bestowing wisdom upon you. I'd met him once at a company event where he'd looked at me with that smile rich people reserve for service staff. He makes me feel awakened, she whispered, and that's when I realized this wasn't some impulsive affair. This was a carefully constructed fantasy she'd been building for months, every word focus grouped to make her the enlightened pioneer and me the backward relic. I didn't argue, didn't shout, just stood up, walked to the bathroom, and locked the door. Stared at my reflection until the white-hot anger cooled into something far more dangerous, clarity. Over the next few days, she treated me like some project that needed deprogramming. Sent me articles about open marriages, podcast clips about relationship anarchy, success stories about couples who'd transcended jealousy. She'd say things like, if you love me, you'll grow with me, and this doesn't have to be a loss. It can be an upgrade for both of us. I played along, nodded, smiled at all the right places. Said I'll think about it more times than I could count, all while quietly installing monitoring software on her phone, nothing illegal, just enough to mirror her calendar, texts, and cloud notes. What I found would have been funny if it wasn't so pathetic. Carter had her saved in his phone as Wife 2.0. She had him saved as My Becoming. Their texts read like bad self-help fanfiction, all sacred connections and higher vibrations covering up what was really just two people giddy about cheating. Then I found the calendar entry, RKM guest house with the note temporary stay until things shift. That's when it hit me, this wasn't just some affair. She was planning a soft exit, a trial separation wrapped in spiritual bypassing. She wanted to keep one foot in our marriage while testing out her new life, leaving herself an escape hatch if things didn't work out with Carter. The final confirmation came when I overheard a conversation she had with her best friend Mia through our home assistant. You sure he bought it? Mia asked. Totally, my wife replied. God, I feel like I'm finally living for me. Then the kicker. Hey, we all expand in different directions. Turns out Mia wasn't just helping cover the affair, she was sleeping with Carter too. The guy had his own little harem of evolved women, all convinced they were part of some relationship revolution rather than just another guy's midlife crisis. I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I packed 3 large boxes labeled closet, desk, and books. Removed our wedding photos from the hallway. Left her favorite coffee mug washed and wrapped on the counter. Then I reached out to Carter's wife with a simple message. I think we should talk. Turns out I wasn't the first to contact her. Just the first with actual proof. We compared notes like accountants auditing a fraud case, dates, locations, the works. When she asked if I wanted to save my marriage, I answered honestly, no. I want her to see the fire she lit from the outside. When my wife returned from her work retreat complete with lingering touches of Carter's cologne, she walked into a house that was still hers legally but no longer emotionally. The missing photos, the packed boxes, the sudden emptiness where shared memories used to be. You're serious? She asked when I told her to take her boxes. Very, I said. You left to sleep with your boss and called it evolution. You lied about where you were going and who you were with. That's not growth. That's a cover story for betrayal. The real satisfaction came when I mentioned Mia's role in all this. The way her face crumpled when she realized Carter had been playing them both. That's when the tears came, not from remorse, but from the humiliation of realizing her awakening was just another cliché. Her family tried staging an intervention later, claiming I'd blindsided her. So I read them her texts verbatim. He's either too weak to stop me or too loyal to walk away. Either way, this is freedom. That shut them up. In the end, she got exactly what she wanted, freedom. Just not the kind she expected. Because option 3 wasn't about sharing or stepping aside. It was about letting her live with the consequences of choices she thought she could spin as enlightenment. The house is quieter now. Not empty, just honest. And for the first time in months, I can breathe again.